Welcome back to Season 7 of the Inclusion Revolution Radio. I'm your host, Noby Craven, and we're coming to you from the studio of Podbell Media, our podcast production host. In this episode, we're highlighted the determination, resilience, and the excellence of Special Olympics athletes. As individuals with intellectual disabilities, Special Olympics athletes find ways to overcome barriers to inclusion and defy expectations. Today, we're honored to stepping in the shoes of two guests from Special Olympics New Hampshire, who will represent what it takes to succeed off the track. First, meet Thomas Cantara, Special Olympics New Hampshire athlete who embodies the spirit of competition. Thomas has achieved the incredible feat of competing all 6 major marathons around the world. And today, he's going to share what this journey has meant to him and his community. Joining Thomas is Mark Duggan, a Special Olympics New Hampshire board member and former Nike executive. Mark has championed opportunities for Special Olympics athletes and will share what it means to cheer them on from behind the scenes. Welcome Thomas and Mark to Inclusion Revolution Radio. Wow, I'm just truly amazed to be sitting down with both of you. Thomas, can you share how you first got started with Special Olympics New Hampshire?
I first got started back in 1999. I went to a swimming competition at a local YMCA. That's where I first competed as a Special Olympic athlete. And I really fell in love with Special Olympics since then and haven't stopped. And in 2025, here I am still trying to stay competitive and reach for new goals.
I love that answer. How has Special Olympics supported you on your journey to become an elite athlete?
When I first started really taking up running, this is where the sport I became elite in. I was talked to one of my coaches and to join another running club to pursue a higher level of coaching because she knew I had potential to want to become a better runner, and she hooked me up with a really solid coach. He's one of the best marathoners in New Hampshire, and his training is what helped me become the runner I am today. And Mark is the reason why I got the best pair of running shoes. He has his connections with running companies, and I know having great footwear is really important for any sport, especially running. And that definitely helped me become a better athlete, is having the proper equipment. And thanks to Mark and his connections for helping me with the equipment.
Mark, you've had an incredible career from a collegiate runner to leading at Nike for 3 decades. How did those transitions shape your perspective on what sports can achieve off the field?
Well, first, thanks for having us, Noby. It's just great to be here, and congratulations on the success you've had with this podcast. It's really an honor for us to be here and talk about Thomas's story and the progress we've made at Special Olympics New Hampshire. And for me, as a collegiate runner and somebody who's worked in the sports industry for a long time, it's really refreshing to work with somebody like Thomas. And while we provide him with shoes, it's the person in the shoes that does all the hard work and does the accomplishment. But I have to say that as a competitive runner and as somebody who came through and a lot of the training and hard work as Thomas has done, you get a greater appreciation for it. And I think the biggest thing that I take away is from a corporate world or from the competitive world is you really need a great coach, or you need to have somebody who can mentor you along the way. And I think Thomas has had a few of those along the way, plus it combined with his his focus on his goals and his ability to really stick towards those goals. But for me, I mean, I started out as a teacher. I actually taught middle school, and I had an experience with special ed, as they called it in Massachusetts in the early days, before it got into more of what we see today. But those experiences along the way really shaped, my passion to help people and give back and recognize people who, like Thomas, have potential to do more and to be great. And that's, what we get satisfaction out of, whether it's on the board or whether it's as a coach or somebody who can help somebody accomplish their goals.
Mark, looking back on your own journey as a competitor, How did you see the expectations shaping the way you champion opportunities for Special Olympics athletes today?
Yeah, I think, again, I look back at my coach, who was all about opportunities and about, providing opportunities for various athletes at different levels. Early experience that I had when I was teaching school, I was still running competitively. So I would run at noontime at my middle school, and I'd run by the principal's office, and they would have a student in the office. And one day I decided to say, "Hey, why is this person in the office? This student?" And they said, "Well, he's a behavior problem." So I convinced this principal to let me take him out to run, and his behavior improved. And over time, when he got to high school, he became a cross-country runner and ultimately became really good. And what it taught me was running has benefits beyond fitness, about confidence, about building different parts of a person's persona. And so from an early age, I always thought that running was a very good way to address different issues beyond fitness, with confidence and so forth. So,
Thomas, tell us about your experience in 2024 Boston Marathon. What was it like to win your division?
My experience in the 2024 Boston Marathon was like no other. That's when things just went to a whole nother level in my running career, because before that I was just an amateur runner. And then in 2024, the BAA has included some new disabilities to join their para division, and one of them was intellectual disability. And so I got to toe the line with a much smaller group before the open wave goes off. So I got to know how it felt like to be a pro runner, to have all that alone time, and it felt pretty good. And to win my division was really special. I got an olive wreath, which I never expected winning the race. So I got the olive wreath. I got the little glass trophy saying I won my division. And they basically treat the professionals there like royalty. That's why I think elites go back every year, is because they get the really big special treatment. And it's great to see that they open that up, and I'm kind of hoping that my journey will eventually other Special Olympic athletes will catch on. If their dream is to run the Boston Marathon, there is something big for them out there, a fair opportunity at prize money. And so
for me, running is sort of not my favorite ability, but you've run all over the world. If you chose your favorite race, what would it be and why?
That's a hard one, because each world major has something special about it that the other didn't. Boston is always going to have my heart, because it's like a hometown kind of feel, and the spectators are really special. But outside of Boston, Chicago was my absolute favorite. That was the second world major marathon I went to in 2022. The people were friendly, and I liked the volunteers, and I liked the flat course, and the miles just mentally went by quickly. That's one of those marathons where I just had fun with it, and it didn't feel stressful, or it didn't feel like, I wasn't having like any fun doing it. The whole time I just had a great time running it, and I liked the idea. I had a deep dish pizza after the race as a post-race celebration, and that's where I made my mark on a world record for a Special Olympic athlete.
Do you know Chicago is where Special Olympics started?
Yes, I looked at the history, and Eunice Kennedy Shriver had the first Summer Games in Chicago, Illinois.
How did it feel when you went back there?
It was quite an experience, because I'd never been to that part of the country before, and to actually be there and experience especially where Special Olympics started, it was really a great place to do it, and it just felt good to set that record right in Chicago where it all began.
Mark, as a board member, what does this role look like?
So I think as a board member, particularly with Special Olympics, there's two things that we want, that I see our role is. One is supporting the staff, making sure the staff has the resources they need to support the athletes, make sure they have everything they need to do year-round training, and help people understand beyond the board and into the general population. The Special Olympics is not one event, right? I think sometimes we hear that a lot. It's like, the Olympics are every 4 years. Are you guys the Olympics that only have a competition once a year? No, athletes are training year round, so we want to provide the resources. I think the other part is, and personally for me, is to be able to use some of the connections that I have and work with athletes to provide them opportunities. So like Thomas, like one of Thomas's teammates, Charlie Helfrich. Charlie Helfrich is a person who has run the marathon, but has other physical challenges. He's a type 1 diabetic. He's got some other physical challenges. Probably not somebody you would have thought that would run the marathon, but he came to me and we worked with Eric Tinker, who's the board chair, as a partner to train with. And Charlie finished the marathon under 5 hours, but it was a huge accomplishment. So helping athletes like that. And I think between Charlie and Thomas, watching them as role models for other athletes, we've had other athletes come and say, hey, I'd like to run the marathon. I'd like to do this. And not everything's about the marathon either. I think there's other shorter races. I think Mary Beth in Massachusetts and Mary Conroy in New Hampshire have tried to facilitate more opportunities. And that's how the board can get involved, is to help make those opportunities become real.
In your leadership role with Special Olympics, how do you support new opportunities for athletes, such as helping Thomas pursue the World Marathon Majors?
Yeah, so that was an interesting story. We talked about it earlier a little bit about when I met Thomas, and we talked, the first race was getting him into the Chicago Marathon. So he had run Boston, and now he'd run Chicago. And then I think we had a conversation about, wouldn't it be really cool, a dream, to be able to do all 6? And so we sort of set a plan together. I talked to a couple of friends of mine, so I networked really the people that I had, and the former CEO of the Boston Athletic Association, Tom Grill, a good friend of mine and somebody who Thomas had met, said that he would try and help us. So we connected with all the race directors around the world for the World Marathon Majors, and we explained Thomas's dream and his goal to run all of these, and we plotted out on a calendar. We actually said, we put a little poster together that said, Thomas runs the worlds. And we circulated that, and we circulated to all of the various organizations around the world, and each one of them was different in how they responded. And I think we learned a lot. I personally learned a lot, and I think the race directors learned a lot about, how Thomas can race and how you can meet the challenges of people with autism or people with intellectual disabilities running these races. So I think that it's really been a great experience. And every one of these groups really responded well. And what we also did, and what Thomas had a great time, was we connected with Special Olympics organizations in Berlin and in Tokyo and in some other places, just because they had athletes running, and Thomas was able to talk to them and create some mentorships. And I think, so there was a lot that came out of this, and there's a lot to work on for the future.
For my goal, for me, I sometimes would like to do a marathon and see how far I can go. But definitely that would be like, got to take it steps by steps. And definitely for me, it would be cool because I always love to do 5Ks. But eventually I really would love to do a marathon and see how, do you physically have to run the whole entire thing, or are you able to stop and run?
You can stop and run it. It's just, the matter, it depends, because every marathon I've done has a different time limit. So as long as you reach the maximum time limit, you're all set. There's many people who even run Boston that walk and jog it. So they just finish on what they feel is comfortable getting to the finish line. So yeah, as long as you can meet the limit, which some have a 7-hour limit, some have 6 hours. Boston is known to have a 6-hour limit to finish, and that's like a little over a 13-minute mile pace, which is a walk jog kind of pace. It's reasonable. So yeah, you can definitely walk and jog it. Just as long as you meet the course limit, that's about it.
Thomas, can you share some challenges which you have faced and how you overcame them?
Some of the challenges I faced, like running the marathon, I faced a lot of fatigue and someone with autism with their cheering. It's, the noise. I have to learn how to block that out kind of, because I know that's supposed to help runners. And so I was able to take what seemed like a negative to me into a positive. Like, I take in the cheering. I just enjoy my surroundings and just staying relaxed and enjoying like what's around me has helped me overcome those challenges. And learning how to take in calories during the marathon helped me overcome the fatigue, because I had a friend who helped me learn calorie intake, because before that I suffered a lot of fatigue running the marathon. The last 10K is known to be like the hardest part of the race, because that's where people hit the wall, a famous saying for that. And ever since I started taking in what they call GUS, it's spelled like GUS, and that helped me propel the last 10K. So every few miles I take maybe 100 calories in per packet for every 5 or 6 miles in the race. And now there's some marathons where I just don't feel any fatigue, so it's just making sure I get in the nutritioning, and just pace the race accordingly, and to help overcome those challenges. Another thing is my sleeping can be a bit tricky too. Like if I have to wake up super early, that can be tough. So there's times I have ran marathons on little to no sleep, which is not, of course, fun, but I have my experience kind of help me out get past it when I have to face like a race with little sleep. So I just stay relaxed. And I think that's the key thing for me to overcome any obstacle in a marathon or even in life in general, is to stay relaxed. You'd be surprised how much better you do just being relaxed.
I was about to ask a question. How do you, basically nutrition, how do you, race day, what do you physically have to eat before a race?
So before a race, I try to get in pasta, but that kind of varies on what kind of pasta. Sometimes it's lasagna or the old-fashioned spaghetti meatball, and then chicken parmesan's another favorite. So anything with pasta and some protein, basically. And that's what I have before the race.
Okay, so during the race, I see that people are handing out oranges and apples to the runners. So that's pretty cool how to see the running world, that it really is a great community.
It really is. And in fact, they've televised this on the Boston Marathon before, where there's a runner who's really close to finishing the marathon, but is falling apart physically. And there's these strangers in the running, even these are racers, and they're still willing to help this runner cross to the finish line.
What is the recovery like? How do you recover from that? How do you recover from every marathon?
Well, usually I do a lot of resting, elevate my legs. I use a hot tub at my house.
Okay.
And it has massage jets, so getting that little massage and the heat to relax the muscles. That's another use of recovery I do as well. Some people do ice baths. I'm I'm not going to do an ice bath.
No, that's freezing cold. I mean, why would you just basically? What advice would you give to people who want to run marathons but don't know how to get started? Okay,
so I got the perfect answer to this one, because I was asked this exact same kind of question on the Para-Pro panel in Boston, and the biggest advice I can give is just focus on finishing the race. Don't worry about anything else. It's going to be a PR just by finishing your first race. Because I learned the hard way, when I want to qualify for Boston, my first marathon, I just focused a lot more on speed, and I ended up dropping out of my first marathon because I was too cramped.
Mark, what is your hope for people with disabilities competing in sports?
Yeah, I think, as we've talked about, sports in general, I think Special Olympics has done a terrific job. I think the unified movement has been, it's really accelerated on a number of levels, the ability for athletes to participate in sports and on a much different level. But when I look at running, I think running is is an easy way to address fitness issues that we might have with athletes, but also opportunities to be able to go to places you might never have gone to work with people you've never worked with before. It's a very social thing to run. And I think that if you're competing and you're improving from year to year, it builds confidence. I think there's just so many benefits to running. And I think that's the one thing that a lot of Special Olympics organizations have focused on. And I think that's something that we'll continue to focus on. And I think Thomas is really leading something here, along with, others. But I think that's something we need to accelerate on.
What must sport bodies do to make competition more inclusive for people with intellectual disabilities?
I think there's right now an experience that Thomas has had, and there's a few other athletes as well within the World Marathon Majors that can be built on. And there is an association of race directors. There is a running industry organization. And I think that what would be helpful is to be able to have a group or a representative committee, so to speak, of people from Special Olympics to engage with them, to build on, to bring somebody like Thomas or other people who've run in these races who have an experience that they can articulate to these race directors. And some of them are figuring out already. They're sharing what they've learned from Thomas and others.
But also they need to understand what the difference is between a regular person running and a person that has intellectual disabilities running. So I think they definitely need to, like you said, connect and be able to understand, okay, we have some runners that have intellectual disabilities. We have some runners that don't have intellectual disabilities. They can run together, but definitely they're the same person. I mean, they're regular people. So I think definitely that they definitely need to have that discussion.
I've learned a lot from Thomas. It's been an education for me and many others. I mean, just simple things that we take for granted as the starting line. I mean, I always ask Thomas after the race, what was your experience? What was your thinking? And, your experience in New York, for instance.
Yeah. So when I was in New York, so I got to the starting line, and I was in the middle of a huge crowd, which, being on the spectrum can be quite challenging when you're around a lot of people. So when I'm running the race, I have to navigate a crowd, which I'm terrible with. It's really congested, and it doesn't really thin out until you get into Brooklyn, which is the second borough in the New York City Marathon. So that first mile going over that bridge, I must have got bumped into like 6 times by people, which, I know would be irritating for someone without intellectual disabilities, but with someone that has it, it's really, really tough, and it makes you afraid like I might get knocked over or something. So that I thought was really challenging, but once it thinned out and I was able to cruise on by, I just stayed focused the rest of the way and just not worry about my time at that point, because when I got to mile 1, it was much slower than what I was training for. And my goal was just to break 240. And that's a 6:06 pace I have to average to do that. And my first mile was 7:57. So I just told myself, just stay relaxed. That's the one, like the big thing I try to say is stay relaxed. And then when I got to 5K in, I was averaging under 7-minute miles on like 3-hour pace. And I just told myself, just go with the flow. I wasn't checking my watch a whole lot. I just trusted myself, trying to get through the course and just try to enjoy what was around me. And sure enough, I slipped 3 seconds under the 240, and I had a faster second half because I preserved so much early on. But the crowding was really hard at the beginning.
In Boston and in Berlin, there's a special starting space that he doesn't have to go through that. And the other thing that's really remarkable, Thomas's times, he's the fastest Special Olympics athlete in all 6. He's got those records. But what's even more remarkable is, like in Berlin, he finished 321st out of 321st out of 58,000 people.
My good Lord! Now I've
Okay.
I've met a famous marathoner.
Yeah.
Wow! I'm just beyond excited.
Yeah.
Thomas and Mark, what does inclusion mean to you?
What inclusion means to me is it means athletes, getting the equal access to be able to do everything that other people can do. Like the Boston Marathon's a good example of that. The equality in that race with the para divisions, having everybody compete fairly for prize money and not have like, the people with disabilities try to compete for like at the same time standard as someone without a disability, like a WMPT. That'd be unfair to them, especially. So seeing that come together is a beautiful thing. It's just inclusion's a really beautiful thing. And seeing schools even now in New Hampshire, they have unified basketball where special ed programs can compete against other high schools, so they don't have to try out for like, with the other kids, which is a disadvantage because people with intellectual disabilities can learn. They just don't learn the same way. So that's a disadvantage. And to see them have a fair shot competing against other high schools, put on a high school uniform and competing is totally fair. And I kind of wish that was around when I was in school.
So when I see the word, it always reminds me of the story that I was told after we initially had started some unified sports in a few schools. It wasn't adopted in many in the early adoption in New Hampshire. And with a principal who we had a couple of unified programs going on, and he said, he was a little bit skeptical of the whole unified movement, didn't understand it quite a bit. But he walked into the cafeteria one day, and for years there was a table of special needs on one side and everybody else. He said he walked into the cafeteria and there were no more special needs tables. So unified sports works because that's an example of how inclusion works.
You don't want to have a table for people with intellectual disabilities, and then you have people that don't have intellectual disabilities.
But it took unified sports to put a spotlight on that, but also bring people together in a different way that off the court.
Right, exactly. Outside the office, inside the office. You don't, I cannot. I wish this episode could go on and on and on. I thank you both for sitting down and talking about how marathons work, but also how you accomplished all those marathons. And I'm just blown away because I have so many questions to ask you, and it's like at a certain time you gotta. But definitely been amazing. Hopefully we can reconnect and maybe we can run together. Definitely. Thomas and Mark, thank you for joining me on this episode and sharing your journey. Your dedication to the sport, the miles you've logged, the barriers you've broken, continue to inspire our audience and open the road to millions of Special Olympics athletes around the world. To our listeners, if you've been inspired today, find your own ways to get involved locally with Special Olympics, whatever that is, competing, volunteering, partnering, or coaching. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe to Inclusion Revolution Radio. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Special Olympics. We will see you next time for more incredible stories that can celebrate community empowerment and inclusion.
Thank you for having me here.
It's great to meet you, and thank you for hosting us today.